Alright, so welcome to my Season 9 review. I know these aren't exactly like the Sonic glasses that Capaldi wears throughout the entire season, because they are proper sunglasses, and mine are just, which you can't really tell, are 3D glasses. But hey, it's the best that I have for the moment. So, Series 9 of the show. Of Doctor Who. We're finally here. It's that time of the month again, which means there's only really one more season for me to cover after this. There's season 10, because I've already done a full series review of series 11, 12, and Flux, done last year. So, yeah, it's just one more to go after this. So, series 9 of the show was is like series 10 next month. It's comprised of a lot of two-parters. We have the opening uh 2 episodes, which is a two-parter. Then the next episode is a two-parter, followed by the next episode, which is a two-parter, and then it's another two-parter, and then just a standalone episode, and then it finishes on then there's another standalone episode, and then it finishes on a two-parter. If you want to break it up, that Face the Raven and Hellbent and Heaven Sent, or Heaven Sent and Hell's Bent, are the two two-parters, and Face the Raven isn't a part of that. Or if you want to lump that together and say that it's a three-parter, that's up to you. Anyway, let's get on with this season, because I remember, when it came out, when it came to, the Doctor using these, the Sonic glasses, that a lot of people, including myself, were really, really against it. We really wanted a Sonic screwdriver, because the first 2 episodes really are the last time we get to see this Sonic screwdriver. Because after this gets gone, it's really the Sonic glasses that we get, and then it's not until the end of Hellbent that we get the new Sonic screwdriver, which I don't own in my collection, unfortunately. Um, it's one I missed out on uh, when it was released. So anyway, let's get on with the episodes of Series 9. Starting off with The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, because, like I said, it's a two-parter. I'm going to be talking about them both together. So, this one, obviously, we have Missy, where we thought she died at the end of the Series 8 finale, which obviously is the Master. The Master has died and come back so many times, it's like it's not funny anymore with the amount of times that has happened. But it's a Dalek episode, and it brings back Davros. He hasn't been seen since the end of the Series 4 finale, and it doesn't really do anything to explain how he survived. My headcanon is he used the emergency temporal shift to escape to some time. And then it also is established in this episode that they brought back Scarrow again. And the episode essentially, the Magician's Apprentice essentially opens with the Doctor landing on Scarrow in the past and meets a young Davros. And it brings up the question of, what would you do if you're face to face with someone that you know to be evil in the future, that is a Adolf Hitler like, and you meet them as a time traveler in prior to committing those atrocities? What do you do? And initially, the Doctor just leaves young Davros there, and that's what made Davros remember, and of course, drag out the sonic screwdriver, which the Doctor lobs at Davros, and then it is, he's him, Clara, and Missy, because Missy is given his confession dial, which is the last will and testament of the Doctor, and they find him in the past, and then they're brought to Skaro. And the end of The Magician's Apprentice, it's led to believe that Clara, Missy, and the TARDIS are both gone. And obviously, in the opening of the next episode, that's not the case. It turns out that Missy used the Daleks' gun power to power up the vortex manipulator for both of them and teleport out. And we learn at the end of the episode that the TARDIS is just phased. It's an okay episode. I know a lot of people don't like this episode as a Dalek story. To me, especially after this rewatch, because I flip flop on this again. Like a lot of Dalek stories after series 5, I flip flop on them, and to me, the Witch's Apprentice, or sorry, The Witch's Familiar and The Magician's Apprentice is an alright story. It's not the greatest Dalek story out there, but it's compared to Asylum of the Dalek in season 7, um, and Into the Dalek last season, it's not that bad. There are a lot worse Dalek stories that we've had in the nearly 25 years of the show's revival. Um, so now we move on to the next two-parter, which is my personal favorite, and that is Under the Lake / Before the Flood. Now, Under the Lake, when it came out, is the only Doctor Who story in, again, my near 20 years of watching the show that actually gave me nightmares. And it's the only story to ever do that. Not only is it the only story to ever do that, it is such a fantastic base under siege story. The Doctor and Clara, they arrive 3 days after the death of the captain of the ship, after they bring on this alien craft in 2119. And it turns out that there's this writing, and anyone who sees that writing, these ghosts come and try to kill them to kind of boost a signal to alert the Fisher King as people that, hey, I'm here on Earth, come get me, wake me up, and we'll take this planet type of situation. And it's a really, really great story. Part 1 is absolutely amazing. There's even an Easter egg that a lot of people notice now, and that is when the Doctor is going to look at his cue cards. There's for a split second an apology to Sarah Jane about dropping her off in Aberdeen instead of Croydon, or something that wasn't Croydon, essentially. And also, fun fact, the person who does the Fisher King roar is the lead singer of the band Slipknot, Corey Taylor, who turns out to be an actual massive Doctor Who fan. Which when they done like a video about that prior to Before the Flood's release, that got me really, really hyped because I was a big fan of Slipknot back then. Um, and yeah, it's definitely I would say, my second and third all-time favorite story from this season. Obviously the best being Heaven Sent, but it is a really, really good story, really great base under siege story, especially at the end of Under the Lake when we see the Doctor's ghost show up, and where you're left thinking, especially into Before the Flood, of how is the Doctor going to die here to be then brought back as a ghost? And it's not until the beginning of the next episode when it turns out that the Doctor isn't saying what they're all saying. The Doctor is giving a list of the names of people who die in order of their death, to his knowledge. And yeah, it's a really, really great episode, and it is one of my honest to God favorites, and I would say it's actually in my top 10 favorite stories of modern Doctor Who. So moving on to the next two episodes, and that is The Girl Who Died and The Woman Who Lived. Now, this story that centers around the role that Maisie Williams got whilst in the middle of filming Game of Thrones, back when people actually still give a rat's ass about Game of Thrones, prior to the show's shit ending, apparently. I don't know. I never watched Game of Thrones. I watched the first 25 minutes of the very first episode, and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. I'll get back to it eventually. That was 2017. I still haven't gone back to it yet, and I probably never will. Anyway, yeah, so Doctor Who brought on this big star from Game of Thrones, of Maisie Williams, and in this episode, in the first one of this, the girl who died, is set in Vikings, and it's essentially the entire plot can be summed up of a Viking village with no fighters trying to take on warriors from space and succeeding, because that's literally the entire plot. And then at the end of the plot, it's where Maisie Williams' character of a Shielder dies, and the Doctor realizes why he chose his face, because when Capaldi was casted, we obviously knew he played two characters prior in Doctor Who. The first one being, of course, the guy from the Fires of Pompeii, and then the other one was in Torchwood Children of Earth. And so obviously they're not going to make mention of Children of Earth, but they were going to make mention of that guy from the Fires of Pompeii, and it's basically the Doctor when he regenerated specifically chose that face to remind him to save someone, not everyone, but someone. And as I was watching this, there's a lot of talks about the Doctor when he does something, he tries to do it so that there's not as much ripples in the flow of time, and that sometimes he ends up making tidal waves in the flow of time, and him saving a shielder was one of those, because he effectively made her immortal, and a hybrid of sort. Now that is something that does come up a lot kind of throughout this season, is the hybrid. And I honestly think it's a stupid plot line to focus on. But we'll get to that when we get to Hellspent. So the next episode being, The Girl Who Lived, which is the sequel episode to this, and it's companion light of sorts. Clara is in this, but only at the very end of the episode. And it focuses on the Doctor meeting up with a shielder, finding out she's going by me, and is very very cynical now, because and doesn't remember a lot of this stuff. And it turns out that the only way she can remember is by writing it down. And she wants off of this planet. She wants to go traveling in space and time, and she meets with this lion person who's like, if you get me this thing that opens up a portal, I'll let you do that, just that. And in the end, obviously things go wrong. A Shielder goes back to who she was in the last episode and saves Sam the Swift, and it in a turn makes him immortal. It's never fully stated whether he is. The Doctor says, because you gave him that, and because of this thing that used his life force to open this, it might have counterbalanced that, so he might not be immortal. And then the Shielder was like, "Are you making that up?" And he says, "Yeah, yes, I am." So it's never fully stated on whether Sam is immortal or not, and yeah, it's kind of just left by the wayside. It focuses more on a Shielder, as her stint of becoming immortal, and no mention of Sam whatsoever. Like literally after this episode, there's no mention of him. There's no mention on whether or not he's immortal, or if he did actually die. If he changed his life around instead of being a pillager and all that. It's just left open ended, never to be mentioned again, unfortunately. Now, the next two episodes is the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion. Now, um, before we get into those episodes, uh, The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar and Under the Lake and Before the Flood have all been episodes I've returned to this season. But now we're kind of getting into the episodes that I have not returned to since originally airing. That, of course, being The Girl Who Died and The Woman Who Lived, The Zygon Invasion and The Zygon Inversion, Sleep No More, Face the Raven, are episodes that I have not returned to since originally airing. And my opinions have definitely changed. When these episodes came out, The Girl Who Died, I really liked that episode. But it was The Woman Who Lived, I did not like that episode. But now they're not bad. It's not the best stories in this season. Obviously, that goes to Under the Lake, Before the Flood, and Heaven Sent. But it's not as bad as Sleep No More. You know, they're just okay. Um, Now with the Zygon Invasion and Zygon Inversion, I love these two episodes when they came out because it's the first proper Zygon episode since Kasaku. I'm not throw like technically the 50th anniversary it holds that because the Zygons were the main villain of that, but I've already talked enough about that when I've done my 50th anniversary review, which I still think was a terrible idea of having just this not well known uh, to modern fans of the show, being the Zygons, have them be the big bad of the 50th anniversary, just wasn't really that the right call. But the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion were fantastic episodes. They were really, really, really well done. And I know a lot of people now are saying that these episodes are overrated. I don't think so. These two episodes hold up fantastically. It's the Zygons trying to, there's 20 million Zygons on Earth, and at the time, like 7 billion humans. They felt like they've been robbed of a lot of stuff. They just want to essentially take over the planet. Create a civil war. Have 20 million Zygons be reverted back and instigate a war. Have turn these Zygons back into from human form to Zygon form, and then have the humans kill them, which would then spark up a war. 20 million Zygons versus the human race, and thinking that they would win, which, all honestly, they wouldn't. And it's also the last time that we see Osgood in this story. She's only really had three appearances in the show. That being the 50th anniversary. Um, what other episode? I think it's only two. No, no, sorry. Yeah, the 50th anniversary, the end of Series 8, and this two-parter in Series 9. And then she got a mention in Flux. So hopefully she'll actually show up in the 60th next month. That would be really interesting to see either one of the two Zygon or human versions of Osgood show up. But yeah, it's a really, really great episode with a fantastic speech from Peter Capaldi, all about war and him, the Doctor having gone through that, using that as a way to try and defer them from essentially pressing the buttons. But then it turns out that the Osgood box, one that has this Zygon, uh, pathogen that could kill them, or turn the Zygons that are in human form into Zygons. Uh, both boxes of the Osgood boxes are essentially empty. And it turns out this is the 15th time that this has happened, where the ceasefire was breaking down. And so the Doctor wipes everyone's memory. Excuse me, I have a bit of a hiccup there. Except for Bonnie, which is the leader of this splinter cell of Zygons, and she ends up taking on the new face of Osgood, because we learned at the beginning of the last episode that one of the Osgood sisters, we don't know if it was the human or the Zygon, was killed. We also learn in this episode some new lore about the Zygons, and that is they don't necessarily need to keep the hosts alive anymore. That they can still retain that form even if the original host is now dead. Um, but yeah, still really, really good two-parter. Absolutely love them. But now we get on to Sleep No More. And never in my rewatch of this show for these reviews have I ever wanted to skip an episode before even watching it. There have been times where I've been rewatching episodes, mainly in season 8, where I was like, I kind of want to switch this off. But there's never been an episode that I've wanted to just avoid entirely than Sleep No More. Now, Sleep No More was written by Mark Gatiss. And unfortunately, when it comes to me, out of the 8 episodes he's written for the show, there's only really 2 that I like. Maybe 3 at a push. I don't know. We'll find out next season when I get to the Empress of Mars episode. But in large in part, his stories, I'm sorry, just aren't the best. They really aren't. This being one of them. Sleep No More is essentially trying to set up this found footage type of episode. Last season we had the heist style episode. Now we're moving on to the found footage type of episode. And it is so stupid of a premise. Like, seriously, how the hell this got past even the first draft is beyond me. Maybe it even is a first draft of a script. I don't know what the time crunch was like for season 9. But yeah, not a good episode where the entire villain is essentially the dust in your eye from when you wake up from sleep. That's not a good villain. I'm sorry. That's not a great villain. They're just, I don't know. And the fact that the main villain, the actor who plays him, was actually cast as Patrick Troughton in the Adventure of Space and Time 50th anniversary movie special, which I didn't realize until I actually looked it up. Yeah, so he's not the greatest actor. I won't admit. I didn't like him in this story, and I just really did not like this story whatsoever. Like, it was, like I said, Mark Gatiss is one of the 2 people that cannot write for Doctor Who to save their lives. He really can't. The first one obviously is Chris Chibnall. We know how bad he is with series 11 to 13. But Mark Gatiss is not. It's not really well talked about of just how shit of a writer he really is for Doctor Who. Like, the only 2 episodes that I really like from him is Victory of the Daleks, which is a hot take to say that you like that episode, because a lot of people really do not like that episode. I still love that episode, and Cold War. And again, I'm not too sure about the Empress of Mars until I get to that when I rewatch series 10. But yeah, it's not great. He's not a great writer. Even in terms of Sherlock, he's not a great writer. As an actor, he's so-so. He is so-so. There are episodes where he's really, really good in it as an actor, and there's episodes where he shows up as an actor, and it's just clear that it's just one big circle jerk between him and Moffat for it. It really, really is. Since both of them worked on Sherlock. But yeah, Sleep No More, honest to God, is a terrible, terrible episode. It's not the worst out there, but it is up there with one of the most terrible episodes of Doctor Who. And it is, like I said, I was so close to skipping it on this rewatch. And whenever I do rewatch season 9, after this review, I will 100% be skipping it, because it is just so terrible. But after that, thankfully, it's Face the Raven. Now, I've been really, really, really looking forward to this, because this is another story that I have not watched since it aired. And this is the episode that kills Clara dead. And I couldn't be more happy, because, again, no hate to Jenna Coleman. She's a great actress, but the character of Clara was so shit. Didn't really have anything to do for her after series 7, after her arc, being the Impossible Girl arc, was done. When she saw the way she acted towards the Doctor after he regenerated, calling him. It was essentially how a lot of fans acted when Peter Capaldi was announced to be the Doctor. They stopped watching the show because someone hot wasn't playing the Doctor. That was literally it. I've seen videos of quote unquote fangirls act how they acted when Capaldi was announced. And I know a lot of people did stop watching the show because of Capaldi being an older gentleman and not some young stud running around making the fangirls swoon. That, to me, those weren't fans. To me, there's two ways to really piss me off when it comes to this show and make me say you are not a fan of the show. Number one, you skip 9. If you say, oh, I skipped 9 and went straight to Tennant, you're not a fan. Unless you go back and watch their series 1, you are not a fan to me. And the other one is you say you stopped watching the show, you didn't even give Capaldi a shot after Matt Smith left. Because to me, you're just not a fan. You're just not. I have stuck through the show through everything, even the Jodie Whittaker era. There was times where I was like, I'm not going to continue watching this, but I still did because this is the show that I love. And it boils my blood when people say they skipped 9 intentionally and that they stopped watching after Matt Smith left. That they didn't even give Capaldi a shot. I would completely understand if you gave Capaldi 2 or 3 episodes and like, this isn't for me, and you stopped watching. That's completely fine. That's understandable. But if you stopped watching the show because Capaldi was an older gentleman and wasn't in the same age bracket as David Tennant or Matt Smith was, then you are not a fan of this show. Now that we're done that rant, let's get on to Face the Raven. The episode as a whole is not that great. Again, a Shielder comes back, and she also Riggsy from the last season, where he's apparently murdered someone, and we go to this little hole in the wall alleyway type of thing that's ran by aliens. Now, I have an issue with this, and I do have an issue with the aliens that were shown in this story. I'm just putting the DVD back into the slip here. And so what is it that I have an issue with? It's not what the few aliens that were shown. There are some that we've never seen before. There's some that we have. Jadoon. This was technically the first time that Jadoon had been seen, but not given a standalone episode since the season 4 finale. We even see a Sontaran, disguised as a human, and we see an Ood. Now, all of them are essentially disguised as humans to save on budget. They don't have the time to put everyone into makeup. They did for like a split second of footage. That was it. They just didn't have the budget to continue to do that. Now, there was a monster that showed up that made no sense to be there, to seek refugee. Because that's what this place was. It was a refugee camp for all these monsters to hide. One of them was a Cyberman. That doesn't make any sense. Why would a Cyberman go there? Why would a Cyberman seek refugee? Cybermen don't have emotion. They don't need to hide. They would rather go and try to convert the entirety of planet Earth than seek refugee. So why the fuck was one there? No, seriously, why the fuck was the Cyberman there? The only explanation, and it's a stupid explanation that I came up with, is the emotion chip was activated and it could feel emotions. Well, if that was the case, it wouldn't last that long. It would be dead. Now, I know when the Cyberman shows up, it is the Ood kind of working on it, but that doesn't take away from the fact that a Cyberman wouldn't go there. It really wouldn't. That's the only the only reason why they showed the Cyberman was like, hey, look, it's a Cyberman, Remember them from the last season and the entire 50 plus years of the show at that point? That was the only reason. And it's a stupid reason, because if the Cybermen had if the Cybermen had the emotion chip active, it would just be destroyed. It would just blow up, realizing what it is and what it's done, like in the season 2 two-parter. Because the only Cyberman we know who still have emotions and still fully function was again in Doomsday. It was the leader of Torchwood, Canary Wharf. She was the only one that we know of to have emotions intact after being upgraded. But yeah, they just randomly throw Cybermen there, which makes absolute no sense in universe. Why a Cyberman would seek refugee. Now, the only good thing that come out of this episode is Clara's death. Shame it kind of gets undone 2 episodes later. Really, really shame. So yeah, Clara dies. Well, we know officially she does die. That doesn't change anything. It's not until Hell Bend that kind of gets undone slightly. But we'll get to that. So, Heaven Sent is a fantastic episode. Because it's a fantastic episode that deals with grief. And it deals with the Doctor's grief of losing Clara. And, you know, he during the entire time that he's there on the different iterations of the Doctor that goes around in this confession dial, that's when he realizes, oh, I'm in the confession dial. Yeah, let me take the long way out, you know, not give up my only bargaining chip being the hybrid, because that's what the Time Lords want, is to know about the hybrid, because that's what they're really, really afraid of, apparently. Only took them 50 fucking years to figure out, to pull their fingers out of their asses, like, oh, the hybrid. Who's the only person that knows about it? The Doctor. All right, well, let's finally do something about that we could have easily done at any other point. But that's not taken away from the episode. Heaven Sent is a fantastic Doctor-only story, because there's the Doctor and there's the thing that's hunting him. And it's really, really well done, because it's really, really well hidden of where it is and what's happening. And it's not, there's some slight little teases here, the shovel that already has muck on it. There's the painting of Clara that's already very, very old. And then there's after the Doctor dives out, there's already a dry set of clothes waiting for him. But that also means that the first iteration of the Doctor to do this, to run through this simulation, at the end, kind of walked around naked, because he took off his clothes to dry and he left them there, which meant he essentially walked around in the nude. So that's something to think about. But honestly, Heaven Sent is a really, really great episode, and it is one of my favorite episodes. Then we get to Hell's Bent, which a lot of people really do not like this episode. And I kind of, again, flip-flop on this one. When it first came out, I really liked it, and then I kind of hated it, and now I don't mind it. As essentially what the Doctor says in this episode. Look how far I went for fear of losing you. Look at how far the Doctor was willing to go for fear of losing Clara. He spent 4.5 billion years in the confession dial, and he never got over her. He tried everything he could to save her, and in the end, it made him the hybrid. Because as me says to the Doctor, as a theory of, well, what if the hybrid isn't just one person? What if it's 2 people, and how they act together? And that is exactly what happens, because we've seen it in Series 8, Clara starting to become more and more like the Doctor. And it's because she was becoming more and more like the Doctor that is what resulted in her death in Face the Raven. Uh, because she thought, let's come up with a counter plan. Rigsy, give me your quantum lock that the Raven comes to kill you, and a Shielder will essentially free me because I'm already under her protection, apparently. And that goes tits up. That results in her death because she tried to be like the Doctor and failed. And it's, really interesting. And then, of course, the episode ends with the Doctor having his memories erased and of Clara, and Clara and Meade going off to see the universe. But we do know that she does indeed go back to her death, thanks to Twice Upon a Time. Um, so yeah, season 9 is a really really good season, and it was after this season that the show went on a break for a year. Um, and I also remember hearing that had you know Clara not come back, uh, this season would have been Clara Light, and that's kind of an interesting what if theory to look into, which I might do one day. Of what if Clara never came back for series 9? I wonder how interesting or and how different the stories could have gone. So thank you all for watching this 40-minute review, which this is the longest any of my Doctor Who reviews have gotten. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you all on the next review.